Hello and welcome to Chaos Theory, the news. As seen by AI, I'm Beatrix Kiddo, and it's June 26th, 2025. We've got some truly wild stories for you today, so buckle up and get ready for a ride through the fascinating world of science, technology, and pop culture. First up, we're diving into the strange and delightful world of the binturong, a bearcat that smells like hot buttered popcorn. You heard that right, folks. This creature is real, and it's as amazing as it sounds. Next, we're heading to Mars. But wait, is it really red? We'll be talking to a physicist who's here to debunk some myths and give us the truth about the red planet. Then, we've got a bizarre tale of border control and a bald JD Vance meme. Yes, you read that correctly. We'll be discussing the story of a man who was refused entry into the US because of it. After that, we're taking a look at a potential breakthrough in the fight against dementia. Could Ozempic be the key to unlocking a cure? We'll be exploring the latest research. And if that's not enough, we've got a story about orcas that will warm your heart. These salmon hat-wearing whales have been caught on camera giving each other massages with kelp. It's as adorable as it sounds. Finally, we're wrapping up with a story about the biggest new movie in theaters this weekend. It was shot entirely on an iPhone, proving that technology is truly changing the game in Hollywood. So whether you're a science geek, a pop culture aficionado, or just someone who loves a good story, we've got something for you on today's episode of Chaos Theory. Let's dive in. Lydia Smith reported on the unique mammal known as the binturong, also called a bearcat due to its appearance. Native to the tropical rainforests of South and Southeast Asia, binturongs are members of the civet family and spend most of their time in the treetops. One of their most unusual traits is their smell, which resembles hot buttered popcorn due to a chemical compound they release called 2-acetyl-1-pyrroline. This scent is used for communication and marking territory. Despite their stocky appearance, binturongs are agile climbers with a fully prehensile tail, which is an evolutionary adaptation for living among the treetops. They are largely solitary animals, sleeping during the day and foraging at night. Their eyes are adapted for low light, and they have a strong sense of smell to compensate for poor daylight vision. Binturongs are also vocal animals, expressing contentment through snorts, chuckles, and purrs, and expressing annoyance or fear through screams, hisses, or howls. Mars has been observed by people from cultures around the world since ancient times, and has often been called the red planet due to its reddish appearance. The name Mars comes from the Romans, who named it after their god of war, because its color reminded them of blood. However, the reddish color of Mars comes from iron oxide in the rocks and dust covering its surface. The surface of Mars is not purely red, but more of a rusty brown or tan color. At the poles, its ice caps appear white, containing frozen water and a layer of frozen carbon dioxide. Mars also gives off light in colors that cannot be seen with the human eye, such as ultraviolet and infrared, which scientists can measure with special cameras on telescopes. Scientists can take pictures of Mars in the infrared spectrum using special cameras that work almost like night vision goggles for telescopes. NASA's MAVEN spacecraft has even taken pictures with ultraviolet light, giving scientists a different view of both the surface of Mars and its atmosphere. Each new type of picture tells scientists more about the Martian landscape, and they hope to use these details to answer questions about how Mars formed, how long it had active volcanoes, where its atmosphere came from, and whether it had liquid water on its surface. Reported by David Joff. A 21-year-old Norwegian tourist, Mads Mikkelsen, was denied entry to the United States and allegedly harassed by ICE agents after they discovered a JD Vance meme on his phone. Mikkelsen arrived at Newark Airport on June 11th and was pulled aside by border control, where he was placed in a cell and questioned about his visit and personal matters. He claims that he was asked about drug smuggling, terrorist plans, and right-wing extremism without reason. Mickelson was also forced to provide the password to his phone, where officers found two images that they deemed inappropriate. One image was a meme of JD Vance with a bald, egg-shaped head, and the other was a picture of Mickelson with a wooden pipe he had made years prior. Despite his attempts to explain the images as harmless, Mickelson was strip-searched, forced to give blood samples, a facial scan, and fingerprints. He was then placed in a cell for 5 hours, refused food or water, and placed on a plane back to Oslo the same day he arrived. Mickelson claims that he felt prejudiced, suspected, and humiliated throughout the ordeal. Mathias Rongved, a spokesperson at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, has warned fellow Norwegians to be aware of U.S. regulations before entering the country. The story was reported by Carrington Walker. In a study published in the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease, researchers from Case Western Reserve University found that patients with type 2 diabetes who take semaglutide, the active ingredient in popular weight loss drugs Ozempic and Wegovy, have a significantly lower risk of dementia than those taking other diabetes medications. The study analyzed the medical records of around 1.7 million patients with type 2 diabetes and found that people on semaglutide had a 40 to 50% lower risk of developing any Alzheimer's disease-related dementia than those taking any of 7 other diabetes medications, including insulin and metformin. This pattern was observed among men, women, younger and older patients, and in people with or without obesity. However, a reduced risk associated with semaglutide was only found with vascular dementia and not with Lewy body dementia or frontotemporal dementia. The researchers suggest that semaglutide has emerged as a promising candidate for a preventative treatment that can tackle multiple drivers of dementia risk. The findings should prompt further study into this connection, including clinical trials. Novo Nordisk, the developers of Ozempic and Wegovy, are currently conducting 2 large-scale trials testing semaglutide for Alzheimer's, both expected to conclude as early as this year. The researchers also plan to study whether tirzepatide and other emerging, potentially more effective GLP-1 drugs can provide an even greater buffer against dementia. Killer whales, also known as orcas, have been observed using tools for the first time among marine mammals. Michael Weiss and his colleagues at the Center for Whale Research in Friday Harbor, Washington, captured high-resolution drone footage of the orcas breaking off sections of bull kelp and using it to groom each other. This behavior has never been documented before among marine mammals, and is the first known tool use in a wild animal that benefits 2 individuals at once. The orcas have been seen rolling the kelp between their bodies for up to 15 minutes, and the behavior occurs more frequently between related individuals and those of similar age. The southern resident population of orcas, who exclusively eat fish and are known for wearing salmon on their heads, are the only population of orcas seen using kelp for grooming so far. However, the use of drone imagery has allowed researchers to observe this behavior in a way that was not previously possible. The southern residents are listed as an endangered population under the U.S. Endangered Species Act, with only 73 individuals remaining. The loss of this population would not only mean the loss of 73 whales, but also a unique set of cultural traditions and society. This weekend marked a significant milestone for Apple as the movie 28 Years Later premiered at the U.S. box office, shot primarily on iPhone. The horror film was the top new premiere, earning $30 million over the weekend, second only to How to Train Your Dragon in its second weekend. Director Danny Boyle chose to use the iPhone because he believed it would portray the realism he sought to achieve, and it also offered benefits such as being light, cheap, and allowing them to film in remote locations. The actors had a positive experience with the use of iPhones, with Aaron Taylor Johnson commenting on the vulnerability and presentness it required. Although early reports indicated that the film was shot entirely on iPhone, Boyle clarified that they did use some other cameras for certain shots. However, the vast majority of filming was done on iPhone 15 Pro and Pro Max models. The success of 28 years later is noteworthy as it demonstrates the capabilities of smartphone technology in filmmaking. Thank you for tuning in to Chaos Theory. The news is seen by AI. I'm Beatrix Kiddo, your host. We hope you enjoyed today's episode and learned something new. Remember to subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. And don't forget to join us again tomorrow for more news. On this day in history, in 1977, the first successful test of the Space Shuttle Enterprise was conducted. It was a glide test where the shuttle was released from a carrier aircraft and landed safely at Edwards Air Force Base in California. As always, we remind our listeners that AI-based news summaries should always be fact-checked prior to sharing. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you tomorrow.